credibility. If you come in and can be upfront and honest and say, actually in this application, I think this product over here that I don't represent would be better for you. That all of a sudden now you become a trusted advisor rather than a salesman.
And I often say that we have all the requirements of space, right? Because it has to go underground and send us data from miles and miles away, and it has to work. Like, failure is not an option.
We'll put on, a standard mule shoe. Ours is slightly different just for that, but it's, everybody's got one.
The top drive and the drawworks really don't care whether the electrons coming at it are from a joystick or a PLC.
The panel, what you see here on the left, which is now controlled by one of my students, is showing you actually the control of our brakes.
As of now, geothermal is a pretty small market.
If you have tortuosity, the casing will be up against the side on part of the well. There won't be any cement there. The cement will have crescent around it.
So managed pressure drilling, it's been defined as a process to precisely control the pressure profile in the wellbore.
The key is being transparent with our clients in this case. So tell them what happened. If we had a failure, tell them exactly what happened. Whether it's our fault, whether it's whatever the issue was, we need to be transparent.
But I think it's very important for everyone in the industry to know what's out there and kind of what's happening downhole as well.
I've probably worked on 40 different performance limiters in my career. If I miss any of those and the computer is raising weight on bit and I miss any of those, I have a train wreck. The computer's going in the ocean.
Here's your new colors, here's your new thing. We don't do that at all.
Here's the tattoo you need to get.
Yeah, here's the tattoo. Sorry about the last one. We used to fake that all the time.
Hey everybody, and welcome to the show. This is the Vidor Locksmith Show. I'm your host, David Gibson, where we are unlocking the secrets to success in the oil and gas industry. One interview, one technical presentation, and one technical screw up at a time by me. And I am super excited about today, mainly because all of my stuff is working. I was testing this out yesterday with our guest of the day, Harald Bolt, and with our new Minute with Andrea Switzer person, and nothing was working. Nothing on my end. It was supposed to be the technical setup, pre-show kind of thing that we usually do, just to make sure everybody's audio and visual stuff is working. And mine was not at all. Theirs were. And so it's a little bit of a tense situation for me. And then this morning when I logged in and started getting everything going, once again, it wasn't working. So it's now working. So I'm excited to see that everything's working just fine and to be able to bring everybody out there watching an absolutely amazing episode. So if you have ever drilled a well, if you have ever made a decision based off of depth, you ever done any surveying, you've worked in the completions group, worked in reservoir analysis, G&G, you've ever had anything to do downhole and it involved the depth measurement, you should be watching this episode. You should tag all your friends. You should share this with other people. This is a very, very important concept. There's going to be a lot to kind of go over today, and I'm really excited to be able to bring this to you. When Andrea and I were talking with Harald yesterday, we literally told him to stop telling us some of the stories because we wanted to be able to save them for everybody here today. So, try to think of any other announcements or anything that I've got to make today. I don't think so. Let's get on with the show. Let's say hi to everybody that is out there watching. Oh, buttons aren't working. Okay. Why is that? Oh, are you okay, buddy? Yeah. All right. Son's here today. He's had a little bit of a stomach issue, so he's here at the office with me today. Didn't get to do field day. Feel bad for him. All right. Start doing that. All right. I think we got everything working. Let me see if this works real quick. It does. Stay tuned for that later. All right. Let's say hi to everybody. Thank you guys for being here. So Lane's watching in from Houston. William tuning in from San Antonio. Mr. John DeWart, who is the LinkedIn user of the day. Johnny Hill, Nestor, Jacob, thanks for tuning in, sir, from Unit Drilling. Those guys are awesome up there in Oklahoma. Thank you for being here, sir. I really do appreciate that. Scott's watching on YouTube. Thank you, sir. Then we've got Carlos that says, hi, David. Thank you for being here. Keith says, best of luck. Andrea, you're going to do great. Yeah, of course she is. Keith is the former person that was on here that we did the minute with, right? Started out with Fahim. Then we went to Keith. And now we're on to Andrea. And I have a feeling that Andrea's not going to last very long on the show just because I know she's going to get swooped up and hired real soon. Leroy, congratulations. Great news. Thank you, sir. Karima tuning in. Thank you. Paul Moore, another great show. Hello, everyone. Paul Moore with the guys over at Vibration Technology out in West Texas. If you haven't heard of them, go give them a look. Interesting stuff that they got. Michael Flowers, good morning from Oklahoma City. Uh-oh, hit the button. The script way too far down. Depth is the most important measurement. Everything else is referenced to it. Exactly. I wish we could get everybody else tuned in and watching on this one. Seriously, we should be like over 5,000 people watching this one. That's how many people should be watching for Harald. I mean, he deserves a absolutely massive audience. You guys tag a friend in the comment section. Let's get some more people watching. Garima says, good luck, Andrea. Brett says, looking forward to the show. If y'all are looking for somebody, take a look at Brett's LinkedIn profile. He's looking to be able to get a job. Give the guy a shout. Ozzy's tuning in from Austin. Aaron Baxter in Austin as well. The Austin group is growing. All right, LinkedIn user. Hi, David from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Stephen Lubeck. Digitalu? All right, well, plug it away. I'm good with that. Oh, man. All right, Felipe. Andy, remind me, I need to send you your stuff for all of the winners from last week. I need to be able to send them their stuff. Kennedy's here, LinkedIn user. Jacob says, yes, sir. JP representing Clutch City. All right. I'm going to be out of my depth on this. All right. Phil, tuned in from Kuala Lumpur, watching from LinkedIn. All right. Philip's like, I mean, he's on the other side of the world. I don't even know what time it is there, but thanks for being here. Bogey and the crew over at Dixon Directional, thanks for being here. Mr. Karan, let's start. Oh, all right, I'll get going. Sorry. LinkedIn user from Tomball, Kennedy. Thank you, sir. Brent says, thank you. Meant Digitally for laser pipe tally. Oh. Digitalu sounds pretty cool too, but Digitally sounds a little bit better. Alpesh from India, and then drilling manager, Dan Greaser. Good morning, David. Looking forward to another great show. Thank you, sir, for being here. We do appreciate it. All right. So for our next segment, I have not made the intro for this, and I'm not going to play the old intro for it because it doesn't really quite match up, even though it would be somewhat funny. I've already said the name, but the person that's coming on is an absolutely amazing drilling engineer. I have sat across the table from her and had her grill me and my team with questions. And you can really tell how intelligent someone is and how smart they are and how well they understand concepts by the level of difficulty of questions they ask. And let me just tell you what, she brings some tough ones. But she's an absolutely amazing person. And I am so proud and so honored to be able to have her here on the show today. So if you and or your team are looking for a drilling engineer, look no further than our very own Andrea Switzer. Andrea, take it away.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, David, for having me on the show and those kind words in your introduction. Drilling engineering can sometimes be challenging, but I find it full of opportunities to make an impact. One of the things that I do when I first start on a new team or a new project is I listen to the challenges that the team has, and I try to figure out where I can make an impact with my new knowledge and set of eyes. When I first joined Apache's Permian drilling team, one of those impact areas was intermediate drilling performance. At the time, the 6-month average from the number of bit runs needed to go from the surface casing point to the intermediate casing shoe was about 2.3. After taking a holistic approach, analyzing the data for over 25 wells, and looking at bit dull gratings, motor configurations, and of course, drilling parameters, I created a forward plan to mitigate and reduce bit whirl on our next wells. With this forward plan, we made immediate progress, and we reduced the number of bit runs from 2.3 to 1.1 in about 3 months. This is just one of the areas that I love to do and make significant changes in drilling engineering, and there's so many opportunities to do that, and I look forward to connecting and sharing more of those with you.
Adrian, thank you so much for being here, and with those I can't say much more. Thank you so much for being here. You're definitely adding a level of intelligence to the show that I could never bring before. So I appreciate it very much. All right. Thank you. Andrew's going to stick around because she's going to be asking some questions of our next guest. But before we do that, all right, let me see if I can get, that's all right. I can be fuzzy. I don't care. You know what? Watch me. All right. Mohsen, hold on just a second, right? This is how the show normally goes. Calm yourself. We will get there. I promise. All right. Tuning in from the North Sea, one's from Katy, Texas, Scout Drilling. Sunil in India. That's my buddy right there. All right. Caitlin says, good morning from Calgary. Let me see if I can get this to work. Maybe if I jack up the light. How about that? Whoop, wrong way. Nope. Stop 1.7. Don't want to focus. Fine. Robert Carrington is in focus today. Carlos is here. Leroy and Mark LaRue. Thanks for putting these on, David. This is a great one. Thank you, sir. We haven't even started, and it's already great. All right. So for everybody that's watching, I'm going to do something really, really cool here. Hope everybody's listening in. I need you to be able to put on the screen. Hold on. Share screen. Share screen. Share screen. I should have done this all beforehand, but I didn't because life, right? So, oh, perfect. Oh, yes. You can see the beauty. All right. I need everybody to do this real quick. Hashtag Gibson. Type into the comment section, hashtag Gibson. If you do, the winner of the drawing today gets a, oh, don't do that because then that'll make it go out of focus. I got to hold it back over here by my head. Gets a Gibson Reports 3D printed drill bit. If you are somebody that's watching the show and you want this to be your name instead of mine, and you want to sponsor the giveaway that we do on the show, because I'm one of the very first people in the oil and gas industry, one of the very first people within StreamYard to be able to, actually I was the very first person outside of their company to be able to do this. So if you want to be giving away some of your cool swag on the show, get in touch with me. Let me know. We'll work some deal out. But for today, hashtag Gibson. Anybody that does hashtag Gibson, and be sure, don't capitalize it. If you capitalize it, it doesn't work. So you got to make sure it's lowercase g. Do that. We'll get you guys in the drawing for the thing today. One of the people that just put it in there made me laugh. She could have as many of these as she wanted, and she's still putting it in there. Okay. What do we get here? Okay, so we got a whole bunch of the comments coming in. And this works both on YouTube and on LinkedIn. So very sure. Hashtag Gibson. All right. Let's go ahead and do the drawing. Let's see. We've got 26 people out of like how many people we got watching? 81, 82 plus this. So we're up over 100 people, and we've only had 20 entries so far. It's like, I know my name. It's, Gibson. Oh, so difficult, right? Just enter it in. It's not that hard. See, next week it'll probably be something like Arc Energy, or I don't know. We might just have to make everybody type in Andrea's name, or we could do something like Vibration Technology. I don't know. We can do a whole bunch of different things, but got the control of. All right, so we've got up to 35 now. That's good enough. Let's go ahead and take this back off the screen so y'all can see my beautiful face. Share this, add it back to the stream. All right, everybody ready to go? Here we go. Let's hit. Let me come back over here. Is that working? Nope, that does not work. All right, let's hit the drawing. Let's see what happens. Oh, what is that? Don't do that. All right, up to 44 now. We're gonna get any last minute. Is the lunch included in this thing? Mo Lewis, if you want lunch, man, yeah, come on out to Texas Hill Country. We'll do lunch. All right, here we go. Drawing set now. Who's it going to be? Drum roll. Who's it gonna be? John Legger. John, reach out to me on LinkedIn, get in touch with me, and put this in all yours, sir. All right. From this. All right, you guys, quick break. We're going to show you guys the intro to how it's done. And right after this, we'll be back with our guest of the day, Harald Bolt. Harald, thank you for being here today, sir. Uh-oh, did we catch you? Are you trying to enter the competition? This one's already gone. This one's already gone.
No, that's
John
fine.
the whole way.
I realized that I wouldn't win.
Do what?
I realized that I wouldn't win, so I let them get it.
You're just letting somebody else get it. I mean, that's very nice of you, and I appreciate it. Well, Harald, thanks so much for being here on the show today. I know that we've got a lot of ground to cover. For those who don't know who you are and don't know what your area of expertise is, can you give us a little bit of background on who you are and what you're going to be educating us on today?
Yeah. Obviously, my name is Harald Bolt. I've had that name for quite a while now. I started work in the oil industry as a logging engineer. And when my mate told me I ought to get into logging, I could not figure out what chopping trees had to do with getting oil out the ground, but that's another issue. I worked in the oil industry. I worked in wireline logging for quite a few years. Did a lot of exploration, appraisal, and case-style work in the Netherlands, and went on through training in Scotland, and then was training manager in Houston for a number of years. And then I came back to Europe and have been working as a consultant since. I started trying to figure out what depth was quite early in my career. The famous event being reaching TD, and the guy who was my highly experienced training engineer who had been in the logging school before me, he asked, what's your mother's birthday? And I happened to know my mum's birthday. And I said, well, it's 4th of September. And he said, oh, that's no good. But you said the 4th. Yeah. He said, all right, 1.4 then. And I had no idea what he was talking about. He says, 1.4, that's the correction. That's what we'll put in. And that's how we figure out what the TD is. Right. So I had my introduction to depth determination at a scientific level. And since then, I've been trying to figure it out. And I've got a long way, but I've realized that I'm totally wrong. And by realizing I'm totally wrong, what I'm now trying to figure out is by how much I'm wrong. And that's what uncertainty is all about. So I've come up with lots of ways and lots of mousetraps to play with. The thing is, which mousetrap gives you what uncertainty? And that's where I'm at now.
Well, you sent me this message, and so I'm going to do this for you here. We're going to go ahead and let this roll across the bottom of the screen here. So I'll add this in. Please comment what you expect the depth uncertainty to be at 10,000 feet. And so I forgot a word in there, but screw it. I was typing it while you were talking. But there we go. So now, if anybody's in the comment section, start putting that out there. Let us know. Also, if you do have any questions for Harald, right? He definitely wants to be able to see the questions that you guys have and to be able to throw them out there. And so I know that we've gotten a handful that have already come in on LinkedIn, and one of them came in from Thomas Cannon the other day, and he had asked me to be able to ask you does wellbore tortuosity affect our depth measurement? Now I'm summarizing, like a paragraph of what he put in there, but I know you get the gist of it. And so I'll let that one be the first one. And then for everybody else that's here in the comment section today, start firing off your questions, because this is your opportunity to be able to hear it from the man himself.
Well, wellbore tortuosity does actually two things. It's a displacement of the wellbore geometry. When we think of a wellbore, we think of it like being a pipe that has a central axis, and the wellbore is has an equal radius around that central axis. When you have wellbore tortuosity, what you have is movement of the wellbore actually around this central axis, and that may even get so extreme that the central axis actually shifts to the left and shifts to the right. So you've basically got a wellbore axis that is no longer a straight line. Well, because it's no longer a straight line, strictly speaking, you get a change in the effective length of the well. It won't be very much, but the big difference is obviously what happens when you try to move drill pipe and other tubulars through that section of a well. And that's when you're going to get a higher amount of tension, invariably because of the friction that's then applied to the pipe or the wireline or the tools moving through it. Because there's a change to the friction, you get a change to the dynamic tension that the drill pipe or the wireline is experiencing. And because of that, you get a change in the correction, the elastic stretch correction. And because the elastic stretch correction is changed, yes, the measured depth becomes, the corrected depth becomes different. Now, the measured depth, if you're strictly talking about the amount of pipe in the hole, has not changed. So tortuosity may not affect the amount of pipe in the hole, but it does affect where the bit is relative to surface. So that's the simple answer, I suppose.
Well, we should probably take a step back, and I know that we've got a handful of questions here, but we should probably do this one, which is what do you mean by depth, and is there a difference between depth and a long hole depth? Because that might help. Those two questions might help with the rest of everything else we do today.
This is a key question, and when people talk about depth, in their minds, there are several different things that actually come into play. When you talk to depth to a geologist or a reservoir engineer, invariably they're thinking about where something is relative to the surface going down. In other words, the true vertical depth. When you talk about depth to a drilling engineer, he's usually thinking about where the pipe is. And so it's the long hole depth. Now, a long hole depth is, my terminology for a long hole depth is it's an observation together with a correction that gives you a calibrated length. Now, that's different to measured depth. Measured depth is simply the amount of pipe that you've seen go through the drill floor. Measured depth is the amount of times the wireline wheel has gone round and round. And that has actually nothing to do with where the bit or where the wireline tool is at that point in time. Why? Because you haven't applied the correction. The moment you apply a correction, whichever correction you apply, what you've done is you've taken an observation, you've corrected it to give you a calibrated length, which is then applied along the center of the wellbore, preferably with equal radius all the way to the point where you're considering.
So why is a long hole depth important? And then when is depth not important?
A long hole depth is important if you want to have a calibrated positional measurement. So if you don't care about if you don't care about a calibration, if you don't care what the number is in terms of how many feet or meters it is as a measurement being something that is traceable back to a standard, then it doesn't really matter what the number is actually. But what does matter is if you're going to be using this depth measurement, for example, in 3D positioning, you need to be absolutely sure what the calibrated position is of your sensors when you're doing your inclination and azimuth to give you a 3D positioning that's based on standards, measurement standards of length and hence position. Now, you could say, well, I'm going to do everything relative to the casing shoe. Well, that's fine. You run in hole, you get to casing shoe, you tie everything into casing shoe, and you're done. Well, it means that that's fine, except for the fact, how many fields are there in the world that consist of one single wellbore? I would say not very many. There are some, I agree, but economically, not very many. So the moment you now have a second wellbore, you now have a measurement that you have to place relative to the wellbore that you've drilled before. And that's where a calibrated measurement comes into its own, because then you can create the 3D positioning that is of value. That's when your reservoir can be mapped properly. That's when your free water levels can be tracked properly.
So I want to bring up something. I believe it was in one of the ISC-WSA meetings not too long ago. You had said that true vertical depth shouldn't be called true vertical depth. Why is that?
Yeah, well, for exactly the reason that vertical depth is from surface to a particular point. But there's an ISO definition, that's industry standards or organization definition of measurement, that means the value you have has to have an associated uncertainty. Without that associated uncertainty, that what you're calling a measurement is not a measurement. It's an observation and it's an estimate. Without the uncertainty, there's no clarification as to how big or how small that the trueness is of the value that you're quoting. So if you talk about what I call true longhole depth and true vertical depth, you're talking about a value that has an associated uncertainty. Without the associated uncertainty, sorry guys, it's an estimate. That's it. It's an estimate. Now, I invite any of you guys who are out there doing geology and all the rest of it, and reservoirs and all the rest of it, to go to your bankers and say to them, look, I estimate our field is this, as opposed to saying, I measured the field to be that, plus minus 2 feet. There's a big difference.
Yeah, I'm guessing the bankers wouldn't like to hear that. All right, so something that's already popped up in here several times in the comment section is pipe tension and pipe stretch. Would you like to address either one of those at this point in time?
Well, pipe tension is something that's kind of interesting. You measure pipe tension at surface. Now, there are all kinds of really cool models and really neat ways of modeling the pipe tension all the way down to the bit. And this is a favorite sport of the drillers and the mathematicians, is to figure out what the tension regime looks like from the bit to the surface. Trouble is, unless you have wired pipe, trouble is that you don't measure it. You assume it to be so. Now, tension is measured usually, again, the exception proves the rule, but tension is measured as surface hook load at surface. And my argument says, I I have great respect for the guys that do all the modeling, but I'm going to make my corrections based on where the measurement is made and what it is applicable to. So if I'm pulling tension at surface, the correction I'm going to make for pipe tension is applicable to that at surface. And that's a big change of thinking, because in our minds, we tend to think, oh, we'll make a correction, we'll add 20 feet. And in our minds, we see the bit all of a sudden go through the earth by 20 feet. Now, that's not true, David. The bit doesn't move 1 single millimeter. What moves is our perception of how that depth is now accrued back to surface. That's what changes. And not more, not less. And that we change by including a correction based on the measured parameters. In this case, measuring the surface hook load at surface and measuring the downhole temperature at the sensors.
All right, so we're starting to get some questions rolling in here. So here we go. Kennedy says, so going to come up on screen. My understanding is the driller depth, DP, is used as a standard for all depth calibration and references after drilling. Please clarify if this is the contrary.
Well, this is what is done and is historically the case. That is correct. However, and this is where I have my big beef. The trouble is that drillers, and I think you'll see that in a lot of the comments now, drillers have an uncertainty at 10,000 feet, which can be 20, 50 feet without any problem. And they're quite happy to work with that. For them, that's fine. They're quite more than happy with that as an uncertainty to work with. As a matter of fact, they're so happy with it, they don't even think about it. It is what it is, and that's it. However, they are the guys who drill the wells. They are not the guys who produce the wells. They are not the guys who set up the reservoir geometries. They are not the guys that track the free water level. And those guys, they require much smaller uncertainties to do their job properly. However, the depth is defined using drill pipe with uncertainties that are much higher than those uncertainties which are actually required later down the line for producing the well. The well is drilled in a matter of weeks or months, or I don't know, depends on how long they drink tea for, but the well is drilled in a relatively short period of time. But it's produced over years and years and years. And that production process makes use of monitoring of the fluid levels. Now, if I would say to a reservoir engineer, hey, do you mind if we work with a fluid level, free water level of plus minus 50 feet? The guy would say, well, there's no point in me being here if there's plus minus 50 feet. He actually needs it to plus minus 1 foot. But the trouble is, the whole reservoir's been defined to plus minus 50 feet. So this is a bit of the dichotomy. How do you get around that? This is what I call the disparity or the disjoint between what happens at the well site and what happens further down the line. Further down the line, the uncertainties required are invariably much smaller. How do you get from drill pipe uncertainty plus minus 50 feet to plus minus 5 feet or 2 feet, which is what the guys in the production engineering may be looking for? That's the question.
Well, I liked how you said it the other day. How did you say it? The drillers are the ones who start with the money. What was that?
Yeah. The drillers are the guys that they've got the budget. They're given a stack of cash. And Andrea can tell you how much cash she's good at that. And they go ahead and spend the money. And they spend it on this and they spend it on that. Actually, they don't spend it on anything because it affects their bonus. But anyway, they go ahead and they spend all the money that they think is necessary. And spending money on something like measuring the length of the hole is not part of their remit. It's generally not part of what they do. They drill wells. They're paid per foot to drill it, not necessarily to measure it. Now, the guys later, they're paid to produce it. And the better they can produce it, the more efficient they can produce it, the higher the asset value. But that efficiency of production depends on accuracy in the management of the fluids, and whether that be setting perforating depths or whether it's working with a production logging suite, or whether it's with logging with a pulse neutron the fluid interfaces and the saturations. All of those things depend on a particular model being worked with. Well, if the model is defined to plus minus 50 feet to start off with, you can imagine further down the line it becomes a bit more difficult to actually maximize the utilization of the asset.
All right, before we get too far behind on these, we got another question here. I'm going to throw this one up here, and then I've got a little man's over here bothering me about his Plants vs. Zombies game. So, question from John DeWart. Do subsurface subject matter experts understand the uncertainty of TVD measurements that they use for modeling?
John, I would really dare not to say yes, and I would dare not to say no. I'm piggy in the middle on that one, but it's pretty clear because of the lack of demand for uncertainty requirements, that fundamentally they may not necessarily understand entirely the ramification of it. It's a very good point that you make, and this is something that in APIRP 78 we're working with, and that's coming up with the requirement for operators to specify the uncertainties that they need to see, and then it's up to the service companies to deliver it and show that what they're delivering is what they say it is. Are you throwing things there, David, or is your son all right? Or
he's asking me about his video game, and he's wanting to he's wanting me to stop doing this and just go play video games with him for a minute. And I asked him, just like, give me just another little bit, and we'll play all the video games the rest of the day. So just he's missing field day, and I feel bad for him. His sister's at school, but he's here hanging out with me. So Calvin had the next question. Mudloggers use measured and lag depth. How accurate do you think they are in recording their samples of lithology?
Yeah, that's again a very relevant question, and the answer to that is calculated. That's the straight up answer. And you know from your measured depth, or I look from the driller's depth, if it's corrected or not corrected. Anything that is not corrected automatically becomes an uncertainty. So if you think you should have, let's say, 40-foot correction, and you don't apply the 40-foot correction, then the value that you think that the depth is at is already that amount of uncertainty. So the uncertainty of uncorrected driller's depth is actually huge. It's ginormous. And that's why I say you're better off coming up with a correction and using it, if for no other reason than to reduce the uncertainty of it. Now, the uncertainty of lag time is that's one that I wouldn't dare to get into, because that depends on so many things that someone else is much cleverer at thinking about than me. But it's significant. It is also significant because of, I imagine, the fluid flow properties that you have to deal with.
I love Calvin's statement here. It's official. I'm out of my depth. Several of us are, but this is why this is an important concept, is that a lot of us need to be able to wrap our head around this and be able to understand this a lot more. So Jacob's got a question. Does that difference in uncertainties between drilling the well and producing the well cause any problems down the road, or are new logs taken and used?
Well, obviously they do cause problems down the road, and running new logs, what you're going to be doing when you're running the new log invariably is tying it into the old log 9 in 10 times. So all you're doing is actually reproducing the errors that you had before. Now, if you say, no, I'm going to completely resurvey as a first primary, then you obviously have to go in and again reassess the uncertainty to find out if you're actually doing a better job than what you already have. So running new logs, yes, can help, but you have to look at it in terms of what change are you actually making to the uncertainty of the depth data values that you already have.
So going kind of off of what his question was, seeing any problems, what are some of the biggest problems that you have seen in your career that have been associated with some of these depth issues?
I had someone a little while ago who said, yeah, we've just drilled a well down to, I don't know, whatever it was, 4,000 meters or whatever. And he says, yeah, and we've just, no, it was in feet, but it was some number like that. And he said, yeah, and we've just drilled the sidetrack out of it, and we're out by 25 feet. Is that possible? Well, the answer is yes, it is possible. But the first question I have for you is, what have you done to A, correct the first pipe depth, and B, what is the uncertainty? And to each of those questions, there was no answer. So in other words, they were looking at observed depths with no correction and no idea of the uncertainty. So it's no wonder that that comparing two numbers without any correction and with no notion of uncertainty, yeah, I'm not at all surprised that you have different numbers. As a matter of fact, if you didn't have different numbers, then I would be surprised. So that's how obtuse that it can get. So yeah, it's definitely something that plays a role. And I think most operators, I dare to say all operators, have depth issues. And because there's not a lot of understanding of some of the fundamentals, the depth issues are kind of left out for someone else to figure out. And let's go and do something much more spectacular with a bit of chrome and some fancy equations.
So here's what Gallet says. Apples to apples use wireline depths for perforating and drillers depths for casing or fracking strings. Does that?
Yeah, you can do that if you like. Invariably, usually the wireline will be tied into the casing anyway, so you're back to where you started. They're actually the same. The one is, there's no difference between wireline depth and casing depth. Drill string depth, in terms of the fact that they are both observations of length. And saying one is better than the other, or more accurate or less accurate, depends on but one thing, and that is the uncertainty of the value. Now, we assume that wireline, for whatever reason, is, let's say, it's more accurate. But it ain't more accurate unless you do the correction and you quantify the uncertainty. That's all there is to it. And it's the same with the drill string depth. If you don't correct it and you have no uncertainty, who's to say which is better, which is worse? What happens is the guy with the biggest budget is the guy who decides what the depth is. And guess who that is? I'll let Andrea explain that.
All right, one more question that you've got to explain to us what the Slinky representation is there. Oh, hold on, there it went. Because I've had to, this is where I started my career doing this, right? And they don't really do this in US land very much. How much verifying driller depth at connection is helpful while drilling in progress? Or there could also be another recommendation to minimize the uncertainty.
Yeah, this is a good quick question. One of the things that is really difficult while you're drilling down is that the length of the pipe that has gone through the Kelly bushing does not represent where the bit is. It just doesn't. It gives you an idea as to where the bit is. It's an observation, but there's no correction. Now, the difficulty you have when you're drilling down is that you now have an extremely complex environment for creating a correction. It's seriously complex. You've got mud flowing around at different temperatures. You've got different buoyancy effects through cuttings being lifted or not being lifted. You've got frictional effects. You've got ballooning of the pipe. You've got all kinds of wicked things going on simultaneously. And we haven't talked about weight on bit, and we haven't talked about rate of penetration, and we haven't talked about a torque or any of these things. And all of this is going on as you're drilling. It's really tough to come up with a correction that makes sense, that actually balances all of these influences. Frankly, I don't think it's even worth doing. So yes, it's important to note when each collar goes through the drill floor, but that value you get, I don't believe is actually very useful, except for expressing how much pipe you've got in the hole. Now, this is where my system, if you like, comes out and amends for all of that. If you change the rig state to pull out of hole, simple sliding motion, then all of a sudden the drill string becomes just like one long piece of elastic band. And as you're pulling out of the well, nothing is affecting that drill string except for temperature, which you're measuring at the bit, and tension, which you're measuring at the surface. So by measuring the tension at surface and measuring the temperature at the bit, while pulling out of hole in simple sliding motion, then you have something that you're able to correct for consistently. And here's the beauty of it. That model is exactly the same as wireline. That's how you measure wireline depth when coming out of hole, by simply pulling on the wireline and measuring the tension.
All right, so we have gotten a couple of more questions, but I don't want to miss this. Please do the description of what we've got there with the Slinky.
The Slinky.
Yes.
Okay, guys, this is my favorite toy. Now I'm going to get all enthusiastic. Here you can see my drill bit and my wireline tool at the bottom of the well, right? So let's say the bottom of the well is here. Then you can see that my Slinky and my wireline are at the same point. And now you can see the Slinky and the wireline are at the same point, like that. Now let's say they're just hanging in the well doing nothing, okay? Watch what happens when I do this. I don't know if you guys can see that, but they're oscillating at different speeds.
Hold on. Let's make you. I'll take myself off and then make you full screen here, so that we can.
Oh no, I'm not good looking enough for full screen.
So there we go. Oh gosh, I got to take that thing off. Hold on. There we go. Now try it again.
There you go. So now you can see the Slinky, and it's moving differently. Do you see that? The reason why it's moving differently is because they have different stretch coefficients. And those different stretch coefficients, they cause different frequency in the oscillation. Yeah. But the point is that both of these observations are different lengths of drill pipe and different lengths of wireline, which with the correction give us the total depth at which the bottom of at which the bit or the wireline sensor is. So this is a simulation, if you like, of a drill pipe, which is this one, and a wireline. And you can see they do quite different things, and they behave quite differently. So therefore, when you're logging a well that you've logged with LWD, and you're logging a well with wireline, you can expect the corrections to be different. They are going to be different, just by virtue of the nature of the fact that that you've got different stretch coefficients applied along the length of the line. Now the shape of the correction profile, what I call it, that will be similar between the two, but the actual numerics of it are going to be different depending upon which one that you're looking at. So each measurement requires its own correction, and each observation requires its own correction, and each observation has an uncertainty. Each correction has an uncertainty, and those uncertainties together give you the uncertainty of the depth of value. Voila.
I understand it all now. I'm ready to go to the field.
Well, it sounded like when you started off the show, it sounded like a bit of a wireline logging job. Nothing worked.
So what are the solutions for the operators, for the drilling contractors, for the service companies out there? What can we start doing to be able to overcome some of these issues?
Yeah, the one thing that I think is really important is that operators come up with what they expect the uncertainty to be, or what they need the uncertainty to be for a particular horizon. Now, you can imagine when someone's drilling 500 meters of carbonate and it's all full of oil anyway, it doesn't really give a great deal of matter. That's not a big deal. But if you're drilling an HTHP well and you're looking at a 15-meter turbidite and it's disconnected, you expect it to be disconnected from other bits, that you want to put the whole thing into some sort of geological model that makes sense, then it does make a big difference as to what the uncertainties are of the measurements that you make. And therefore, in that case, I would advise the operators, think carefully about what uncertainties you need to maximize the value of the reservoir. So creating the requirements for uncertainties is step number one. Step number two is then on the side of the service providers. And they should provide the accuracies that allow those uncertainty requirements to be met. And then it's a simple QA/QC issue. And the quality is defined by the requirements for uncertainty, and then the meeting of the quality is defined by the service providers that are able to provide the measured, the observed length to within 0.01 of a percent or whatever the individual measurement parameter accuracies are.
All right, so here's a question, and I knew that this was probably going to come up. Would you agree that depth is overlooked because it's easier to tie in with gamma? I'm guessing whatever
yes,
depth
course,
the gamma is, than to battle over uncertainty of depth.
Yeah, oh, look, of course it is. And in any one well, That is true. As a matter of fact, it doesn't even matter what the depth is. It doesn't even matter. Just as long as it all ties in, that's fine. The problem comes when you have well number 2 and you're trying to correlate from well number 1 to well number 2. Now, if in well number 1 you've got an uncertainty that you've got no idea about, you haven't applied any corrections, and you're simply going on numbers that have come from the drill floor, when you now go ahead and drill well number 2, and all of a sudden you say, my horizons are out by 25 feet. Well, no wonder. All I can say is, yeah, und? Yeah, that's your problem. But if the first well was drilled and the operator said, look, I want these values to within 10 feet, and the second well is drilled, and they also have the values to within 10 feet, then the 25-foot difference between those two wells now becomes a significant event. And you would now be scratching your head saying, what's going on there? And now you can backtrack and find out if an error has been made, or which measurement might or might not be off, or if it is genuinely true that the geological model has to now shift by 25 foot from one well to the other. That's where the difference comes.
All right, so another question coming in from Armin. Should drill pipe manufacturers provide specific stretch constants to be utilized in depth monitoring?
Yeah, they can. The stretch coefficient for drill pipe is actually very simple because it's Young's modulus basically multiplied through the area of the drill pipe. So yes, they can provide that, but it's a very, very simple calculation that you can get yourself. So yes, you can do that, but that should be supplied by the pipe suppliers when they deliver the new equipment. But obviously with pipe wear and so forth, you're going to lose cross-sectional area of pipe, and so the stretch coefficient will change. But that's something that can be measured locally at the well site or off-site.
So one other thing I wanted to be able to ask about, as far as I've seen some more technologies being able to take place at surface for being able to measure casing links and pipe links. How important is it, just the measurement that we are actually doing at surface and creating the pipe tally to, having, because obviously that folds into what's going, down hole and the uncertainties that we're going to have there. Is the advent of those new technologies, is that helping with us? And can that help us with some of the other items that take place further down the road?
Yeah, again, David, it depends on what the requirements are. I keep coming back to the same old broken record. If an operator has a requirement for a very high level of accuracy, so a very low uncertainty at 10,000 feet, at 20,000 feet, at 30,000 feet, then what has to happen is that the accuracies of the individual measurements that contribute to the determination of the depth, they have to be tuned to arrive at that uncertainty. So if you are measuring your 500 feet of carbonate and you don't really care less, strap the pipe and have no corrections. It's fine. Yeah. But if you're now trying to get that 25,000 foot well onto a specific target, and you know that your three-dimensional target zone is this big, you want to go down with the highest possible level of measurement uncertainty. In that case, laser the pipe, apply the corrections, make sure you do it using DWPD when coming out of hole, and you'll get something that can achieve that plus minus 10 feet at 25,000.
All right. Somebody asked. Oh wait, Andrea popped in here, so I'm guessing she's got a question. Is that?
Uh-oh.
You ready to go? But, okay, I'm going to bring her in anyways. All right, Andrea, you got any?
Apparently, our private chat is only for me to read.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. Fun for live show. Now, I feel like Harald keeps throwing me some softballs, and I'm like, down, and there's like 5 of them that I feel like I need to respond to. So I was just going to pop in. One of the areas, Harald, is yes, drilling engineers do have a pile of cash, but typically are scrutinized quite heavily on how they spend that cash. So I wanted to, but accuracy is definitely not our top priority. So, and I definitely know that it affects later down the line. We've had internal conversations about, how accurate should our survey measurements be? If we have, 8 wells on a pad, where do we run gyros? How do we feel about anti-collision? What about these vertical wells that we're drilling past with these horizontal wellbores? And so I definitely think is a very interesting topic for sure. Unfortunately, until it becomes a bigger problem with, I think, management, I don't think it's ever going to hit a drilling engineer's mind. So to your point, though, I did have a pretty interesting case study when I was a drilling engineer for the Southern Midland Basin. I was drilling on a 3-well pad, 1-mile wells, great vertical geosteering well control. So kind of tying it back into gamma ray. Had about 8 vertical wells through the target formation in just the half section, and these laterals are only 800 feet apart. Yes, the Midland Basin does have some, but in this specific area, it was pretty low dip. And we had one of the wells on the pad drilled. Was supposed to be in the exact same formation. One of the specific wells was 30 feet, quote unquote, off. From the other wells, 30 feet deeper, 30 feet. And the first thing that somebody's going to say is, hey, this well was 30 feet off. What are they going to say, Harald? 30 feet, 30.5 feet, right?
Let me, I've got an answer. Well, I want to show you an example of that.
Oh, here we go.
Can you share? I'm going to try this. Okay, right. Have you got it there? Right.
Yes, sir.
Right. So, right, should work. It's kind of gone all squidgy on me. No. All right. Hang on for a second. I just have to fix this.
No worries.
Yeah,
Andrea,
so
thank you for being here.
Well,
thanks for having me. Yeah, so the fingers were pointed, and what is the closest thing to 30.5 feet? The length of one jointed drill pipe, right? So it was, your tally is wrong. Your tally is wrong. Somebody missed a jointed drill pipe. Somebody picked it up with a forklift. Ooh. And it left location exactly. Mark, you have it right on, and I don't know how many times that pipe got counted on location by how many different people, but that was not the case. And the only saving grace we had is that our casing tallies were right on point, so they matched driller's depth. We don't know what the depth was, but they were the same depth. And so in that case, it was, well, do we drill off of gamma ray or do we drill off of depth? And you have to make that choice as an operator.
I think this is an example of exactly that.
Oh, here we go.
This is one that I've got in the literature, and basically this is the same reservoir, and geographically, I've got them labeled A, B, C, D, E, F, G, but G is more or less in the middle of the actual reservoir. But what's happened here is that the top of the reservoir and the bottom of the reservoir are pinched up in the middle of the reservoir. It doesn't make any sense. And what's even more annoying is that the free water level has taken a hike. So what's going on? And this is kind of similar to what you were discussing, that the other wells gave more or less a consistent answer, but you've got one well in the middle of it that all of a sudden doesn't make any sense anymore. Now, in this case, what had happened was that basically the corrections as applied to the logs that were made were actually not done correctly, and that the profile, the physical profile of the well actually created a shortening of the logged length of the well, and that was purely due to the geometry of the well. So it depends very much on, again, how the corrections are made and how they're applied. But I come back to my white horse that I keep charging around on. It also depends on what uncertainty you expect to be applicable to those values. And if you have no uncertainty, sorry, I say it can be any number. But if you say, no, I expect it to be within 10 feet and we're out by 30 feet, yes, then you have an issue and you need to go back to the data and look very damn carefully at exactly what's caused that number to be that.
Well, Harald, yesterday you said you had a war story for us, and that's where Andrew and I stopped you because we wanted to be able to save it for today. What was that war story, or did you already tell that one?
Oh, God, I've got so many. Oh yeah. No, this was way back when I was a logging engineer, and I was sitting in the office one day, wondering what to do, and in comes another very senior engineer who had been in the logging school 2 before me, and he'd just come in and had been doing a long intermediate section through a whole bunch of salt. And the salt in the north of the Netherlands is called the Zechstein. And in the middle of the Zechstein, in one of the layers, you got all this NaCl, just plain old salt, and then you've got one single streak of KCl, of potassium chloride. And it's a one single streak. And when it's there, it's definitely there. And you see it because the gamma ray goes doing, and then everything goes back to zero. Yeah. So he comes in and he's been out logging away, and he's absolutely, he can't get it. He did everything according to the book, absolutely everything. He followed his marks, he did his corrections, he did all the charts, And no matter what he did, on the second run in the well, his KCl salt did not come in at the same place. So in other words, his depth was wrong, irrespective of how you look at it or whatever. Couldn't figure it out. He had done everything according to the book. That was one of the points that made me start to think we have to do things differently. We have to look at how we're measuring depth differently, because if this 1 meter of KCl is out from one log to the next log, that means that we are measuring something wrong and our entire system is not correct. And that was one of the war stories, if you like, that I came across that I thought was kind of neat, because a lot of people will recognize that. But there are ways and means of doing it. Again, it depends on what the requirements are. Now, if you couldn't give a TAM, if that KCl was out by 5 meters, then it wouldn't make any difference. But if your uncertainty says, no, I need to know that reservoir top to within 2 meters, and you find yourself out by 5 meters between 2 subsequent logs, then you have a problem. Now, in this case, the whole clue was that they were running 2 different strings. And at the time, the charts that we used were based on a single weight. And of course, the one string was the first string was lighter than the second string. So therefore, he tied in at TD with the second string, came up logging, And then through all this 1,000 meters of salt, he had no reference to geologically follow with, just the one KCL ping, and it was out. And that was the horror story that every logging engineer will recognize. But, oh my God, is it important? That's a question of what are the requirements. But it showed that something had to be done better to make sure that we do it right. When I was much younger and had more hair, I used to fly aeroplanes. And flying airplanes is a bit of a weird thing because you go off on a dark, dismal day and you pop up through the top of the clouds and it's bright, sunny and great. It's lovely up here. So you mess around with the airplane for a little bit and then you say, oh shit, it's time to go back for tea. And you start to go down and you wobble your way back into the cloud again and it goes all misty and gray. And bingo, you end up at the end of the runway and you put the airplane down. Now, that's a pretty amazing thing to do because you've left somewhere, you've gone up through the cloud, you don't have a clue where you are, but you find your way back down and you're straight back onto the runway where you were. Now, why can't we do that with depth? Think of when a guy takes off from Los Angeles and goes to Hong Kong. You take off from Los Angeles and off you go. That's the last you see of the land. And for the next 12 hours, there ain't no land. And yet you arrive in Hong Kong and guess where the wheels land? Within 10 meters of where the pilot said they were going to land. And you've traveled 12,000 kilometers or something ridiculous. If we can do that, why can't we do the same thing with depth? The reason that we don't is because we don't have the requirement to do it. If the operators say to us, we want the depth to within 2 feet at 10,000, and they have a good reason for that, then that's what they should be supplied. If they say 10 feet is fine, 10 feet is what they should be getting. If they say 100 feet, that's whatever, then that's fine. Strap your pipe and no corrections. That's the difference.
Well,
so is this the time where you're going to answer your quiz question?
Oh yeah, Andrea's on top. I'm just going to be done. So the question was,
I just want to know.
Please comment what you expect depth uncertainty to be at 10,000 feet. So Harold?
Right. So the famous answer to that is, how long is a piece of string? It's as long as you want it to be. And the depth uncertainty at 10,000 feet is irrelevant until you have a requirement specified by the operator as to what that uncertainty should be. And that's what the uncertainty at 10,000 feet is. It's what the operator specifies it to be. And then every measurement you make should comply with that requirement. Then you have a quality measurement.
Well, I can't think of a better way to be able to end the show unless you've got any more questions for Harold.
No, David, I want to make it very clear that it's your show.
That was pointed at Keith. All right. Harold, thank you so much for being here. Andrew, thank you so much for being here, and look forward to being able to see you again next week. For everybody out there that's watching, if you have not already, please reach out and connect with Harold on LinkedIn. So he's that way, right? And then also connect with and then also connect with Andrew on LinkedIn. Trying to think. Next week on the show, we've got Aaron Burton, who's going to be coming on and talking about unconventional completions. Week after that, I don't think we have somebody planned, and then we've got, I don't know, I can't remember all of them right now. Too many things going on. Trying to listen to what my son's doing. He's having himself a full day. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We really do appreciate everybody being here. Brian Gall says, great show. Calvin says, interesting session. Thank you. Brian Dugas says, great show. Tell Pea shooter, I said hi. We'll tell all the little ones, everybody's. Thank you guys all so much for the support. Be sure to be here. Tune in next week. We'll have some more stuff. If you guys haven't already, go over to YouTube and check out the VR 360 reality, virtual reality live stream that we did from Catoosa. Absolutely amazing. If you've never been on a rig before, which some people have never been there, right? It's fair enough. A lot of people do just work behind the scenes. So if you've never been on a rig floor, it's a great opportunity to be able to kind of immerse yourself in the experience of being on a rig floor, as well as walking around the rest of the rig and being able to see stuff. So if you want to, you could queue up LinkedIn, play that one, because the audio comes through really well on that one, and then watch the other part on YouTube. Especially if you've got the VR goggles, if you got Oculus, or if you've just got like the cardboard ones. Either way, it's really, 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 really cool, something to see. Yet I'm finishing right now, buddy. Here, come here. Come say hi to everybody.
Hello, everybody. Hi.
You say hi?
Hi, hi, guy.
Here, I'll unplug it so you can hear everybody else.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
All right. So tell everybody, know your industry, and then point at the camera.
Know your industry.
Boom.
Yes.
All right. See you guys next week. Get the banner bread thing. So we click, which button should we
Can't
click?
see me.
They can't see you. I'm sorry. Oh.
Can't see me.
There. Now can they see you? All right.
They can't
You
see
got
me.
real TV star there.
They can't see me.
Yes, they can. Look, it says West right there. Where's that at? Aha. All right. See you guys.